Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to be learning about the different types of bike lanes. And if you haven't been to this channel before, that's kind of what we talk about, is what it's like to bike in various cities across the country and in the future, the world. And really trying to provide a resource here to help you live your daily life on your bike, whether that's going to the grocery, going to get groceries, taking your kids to school, going to the bowling alley, whatever you might do on a bike. And then on the weekends too, maybe or during the weekdays, mountain biking, trail riding, gravel biking, road biking, really with an emphasis on safety and encouraging people to figure out the infrastructure they have in the local cities near them. Yeah, it's kind of what it's all about. With that being said, I still have a lot to learn when it comes to this. And I want to kind of take you along the journey with me. So I'm going to do kind of a deeper dive into some articles I've been looking at. The main thing to realize with the bike lanes is that no two bike lanes are created equally. They're all a little bit different, have different pros and cons when it comes to cost or when it comes to safety or comfort. And I think it's important just to distinguish some of the differences between them. There's no like universal language for these, but I came across an article I like called smartcitiesdive.com. They have an article from, who wrote this? Let's see. I'm seeing the author here. Author was Jay Solier. Don't have their full name there, but this talks about, I believe, 4 different types of bike lanes. So let's start with this one. So the first one's called a sharrow. It's like an arrow, but sharing the arrow. So this looks like this. They provide a photo here where you've got kind of like a normal road or normal street. And honestly, what they've done is they've painted a cyclist with some arrows, hence sharrows, on the road. It's supposed to encourage cars to kind of watch out for cyclists, and also make cyclists feel more welcome. Nonetheless, it's not really anything different than just paint. And I think these are, it's kind of basically the lowest bar when it comes to bike lanes. Okay. This next one, they consider it a super sharrow. And it's basically the same thing, except they have some green paint, which I do think it makes it more visible and distinguishable. If you have a cyclist on that green paint, they're going to be more visible. And so a little bit better, but nonetheless, you're sharing the road with automobiles that are going much faster speeds than you, and may be distracted on their phones, right? May not be looking out for cyclists. Then we go on to striped bike lanes, suggests. So the difference here is it's kind of similar to a sharrow, except the painting and the lines distinguishing the bike lane are off to the side. The cars are going to be traveling on their own path, and the cyclists are going to be traveling on the shoulder of the road, essentially. This is just a step above the sharrows, really. There's no like protection or buffer, really, which still just a step above, but not the best. A lot of roads are wide enough anyways to kind of accommodate for a shoulder. And honestly, though, from what I've seen, a lot of bike lanes that look like this, like a striped bike lane, they're on narrow enough streets to where the cars are kind of getting in your business anyways, to where they're not all that effective. All right. This one is painted with green paint, which I do think is quite helpful in distinguishing and visibility. As far as buffered bike lanes, so this is where there's some space in between the bike lane and in between the road. Very similar to the striped bike lanes we just looked at, except they have about 3 to 4 feet of space. I guess that distance could vary depending on the situation. But yeah, definitely a little bit more protection as far as, cars that are turning or maybe changing lanes or turning off the road, or you see this like minivan here coming on the road. Still, I don't think there's that much visibility here and that much indication that it is a cycling lane. So a step above, but still not as good as the next step up, which would be a protected bike lane, with bollards. This is quite similar to the buffered bike lane, except it has some actual barriers that are going to make sure cars aren't coming into your lane, or at least extremely discourage them. Most of these bollards, actually, you could basically like hit them over. They're bendy, so cars can hit them, bikes can hit them most of the time, and they just bend over and then flip back up. Some of them are a little more robust, but this is definitely a step above just those standard buffered bike lanes. So that's 4 different types of bike lanes that this article goes over. So I think the name Sharrows is a great definition to stick with. You know, it's a sharrowed road. It's really nothing too special. A painted bike lane, striped bike lane off to the side. You know, it might designate. As far as buffered bike lanes, I think that's a good definition because it implies that there is a buffer between the road, the car lanes, and the bike lanes. And then a protected bike lane, you know, I would more call these like because to be honest, this protection here is, while it is a physical object in between the two of you, cars could still plow through those, and especially if they're distracted. So I wouldn't, I don't know if that lingo is correct. I would more call it like a bike lane with separating bollards or something of that nature. I still think that there's some clarifying definitions that could be improved on. Nonetheless, I like the definitions they gave. This article from ggwash.org offered some different definitions. Mixed traffic, they're calling these. So simply regular streets on which bikes are permitted to mix with cars. So that's kind of like a sharrow. And you know, actually no, a little bit different. So they're considering a sharrow here to be what in this previous article was a striped bike lane. So again, there's discrepancies in the actually, no, I'm incorrect. I'm looking at the photo incorrectly. So the sharrow street, yes, is this right here. And then the bike lane is this photo that we're looking at right here. Bike lane is just such a broad, umbrella term, not very specific. A bike boulevard, this is something I haven't heard of before. Pathways specifically optimized for bikes through a variety of techniques, but on which cars are also permitted, though sometimes discouraged. Include lane markings, chicanes. Now, I've been watching a lot of videos from Not Just Bikes, the YouTube channel. He talks a lot about how basically traffic designers could do a better job of not relying on speed limits, but relying on things like chicanes, like speed bumps, like trees or curves in the road that encourage cars to slow down. Instead of looking at a road sign and then altering your speed, the natural design of the road is what's causing you to slow down. Think of like rotaries and things like that. You're going to anticipate them, slow down, and that's going to make the road safer definitely for pedestrians and cyclists, and cars, as long as you're paying attention, which you should be. A side path is going to be kind of like a sidewalk that's wider. And then a protected bikeway, you know, a side path is what let's see. The way these photos are lined up is a little bit confusing to me at first. So I'm just trying to, okay, so this is the bike boulevard. The photo is above. Okay, a side path is, again, it's kind of like a sidewalk, but yeah, they're built as extensions of the sidewalk. Okay. A protected bikeway is what had kind of the same definition as this article here, in a protected bike lane, sometimes separated by automobile traffic or bollards. But then the piece de resistance, a trailed or shared use path. Rail trails would be like this. So rail trails are old railroads that have been converted into bike paths. and generally they're completely separate from automobile traffic. You can see this one, you're just immersed in the trees. And in my opinion, this is the piece de resistance of bike infrastructure, fully separated from cars and auto traffic, also more immersed in nature. Obviously not realistic to place everywhere. We have constraints, and that's why all these other options, these 6 other options above it, also can fill certain voids. But nonetheless, I really think that the majority of urban roads need something at least at this level. Protected bikeways with bollards in separation from auto traffic. And I do think there are areas where bike boulevards also make sense, where cars and bikes can intermix, but the natural design of the road are encouraging cars to drive extremely slow, extremely cautiously, allowing for bikes and cars to kind of be going at a similar pace and really kind of coexisting rather than fighting each other. And then ultimately, I think especially in newer developments, newer cities, but there's no reason why older established cities can't really make big changes too. Protected bikeways, at least running as main veins through urban areas, and out into the suburbs, and beyond the city, I think are very important as well. So yeah, this I think was interesting for me to learn a little bit more about. I learned some definitions here. I probably won't use these by heart, these definitions. I think that there's a lot of ambiguity there, and we've got a long way to go as far as figuring out some like real defined definitions. But this is definitely a start. So thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good one.